Okay. So, today we're going over our Carnivore and our Rodent skulls. So, a couple things I want you to remember. If the skull is not within this presentation here, then you're not going to be asked to just have a picture of it and be able to ID it. These are the skulls that I really want you to focus on. For the rest of the skulls that are in the slides, make sure you know the characteristics that I talk about when I go through those different slides. So I might want you to know different things about them, but I don't want to be able to just show you a picture and you tell me what they are. So make sure you're really focusing on these skulls that I have here today. So first I want to start out with our Canidae skulls. So we have 4 different species of Canidae that I want you to know by skull. We're going to start out with our Canis lupus, which is our greatest wolf. So for the gray wolf, what you're going to notice is that it's the largest of the 4. You're also going to notice that you have this pronounced sagittal crest for muscle attachment, a lot more pronounced than any of the other canid species that we have. With all of these, you're also seeing really pronounced canine teeth in the Carnivore. So next is our coyote. And what you'll notice in the coyote is that it's kind of moderate in size. It's in between our Canis lupus and our fox species. We do still have a bit of a pronounced sagittal crest, but it's not nearly as pronounced as you see on Canis lupus. Also, if you look at how these ridges, they're going to combine pretty early on, coming back to the skull compared to the fox species. So make sure you're looking for that detail as well. So you're looking for a moderate skull, and you're looking for the ridges to combine like this, and you're still looking to have somewhat of a pronounced sagittal crest. Another important thing to notice with all the canids is that they all have 42 teeth. So that's a good way to make sure that you have a canid. Next, we have our red fox. So we're going down in size yet again. So a good bit smaller than either of our coyote or our Canis lupus. You also see that there's not very much of a pronounced sagittal crest. It's still there, but it's not nearly as pronounced as you have on the other 2. The other thing you'll notice is that these ridges come back to join in a V. They don't join quite as well as the coyote does, but they join a lot closer up than the gray fox does, which we'll see in a second. So look for this V shape, this smaller size, and that's how you're going to know that you have a red fox. So this is your red fox skull. And then finally, the smallest one that we have is our gray fox. So for our gray fox, we have a U shape, which lines up with our scientific name, Cineo argenteus, or Urocyon Cineo argenteus, which is where that U shape comes from. And then your red fox is Vulpes vulpes, which is why you have that V shape. So it's a really good way to help you remember the 2 of these. So really small, you're getting this U-like shape, and you can see that there's almost no pronouncement of that sagittal crest. It's really relaxed and a lot smaller than our other ones. So those are our 4 canid species. So next, we're going to have our black bear. So we're going into Ursidae now. This is the only skull you need to know for the bears. So as long as you can identify this as a bear skull, you're going to be in really good shape. It's a very elongated skull, so you can see that the eyes are fairly far forward still. One of the other really good features of this to look for is that smooth back of the skull. You're really seeing no pronounced sagittal crest like you are in the other species. So look for that smooth back, and you're going to have a pretty good idea that this is your black bear. So a bigger skull, a smoother skull, and the zygomatic arch take up a lot of that skull as well. So next we have our raccoon skull. So our raccoon skull is pretty small, definitely a lot smaller than our fox skulls and our bear skull. So make sure you're looking for that smaller size. Also, if you look at the slides, they talk about this triangular shape that you have, which is not so much present within the other skulls that we have. We'll also notice that we do have a similar ridge pattern to that gray fox, but it is a little bit different. Really no pronouncing of the sagittal crest, so make sure you're looking for that. So it's pretty bland skull in terms of the others. I'd say one of the better ways to know this is smaller size and by eliminating the other options that we have. Also, if you're out in the woods and you find a skull, it's very commonly a raccoon skull, so that'll help you out as well. All right, so after that, we'll move into the Mustelidae skulls. So for Mustelidae, we have 3 different skulls that I want you to know. Originally, we might have also went a little bit farther into knowing the mink and the least weasel skulls, but due to the difficulties of IDing these online, I went ahead and simplified the list a little bit. So we'll start with the smallest. So here's our long-tailed weasel skull. It's the long-tailed weasel skull, and really all of these mustelids, you see a really pronounced cranial region of the skull. It's very elongated. For the most part, they tend to be smooth as well, but we'll see that's not always true. So you're really looking for this elongated shape, and then our long-tailed weasel skull is rather small as well. So these mustelid skulls have a really definitive shape that you can look for. So make sure you're looking for that shape. Next, we have our fisher skull. So for the fisher skull, one of the things you'll notice is this is the only skull that really has a pronounced sagittal crest. So make sure you're looking for that sagittal crest to identify it as a fisher. Outside of that, you look for the general mustelid shape. So it's a rather good sized skull. It has that pronounced sagittal crest, and then also it has that elongated shape that we have in some of these other mustelid skulls. And the final one I want you to know for mustelids is the river otter. So the river otter is the biggest of the skulls that we have within this family. And the best way to tell it apart from the fisher is just the lack of that sagittal crest. So we can see that this back is really smooth. So that's a key, is to look for this smooth area back here. And then you still really have that elongated shape. And like I said, with all of these carnivores, you're going to see there's see the teeth up front. So make sure you're looking for that elongated shape and the smoothness, and that's pretty much going to tell you that you have a river otter. So the last skull I want you to know within Carnivora is our bobcat skull. So the bobcat skull, the big key identifying characteristic is just how flat the front of that face is. You see there's almost no area in front of the eyes here. It's a very flat nose. If you look at it that way, it's a very short skull compared to a lot of the other ones that we're looking at. So large cranial region still. You do see these postorbital up here, so you can look for those as well. But just really looking for that short skull, very short nose on it. So make sure you're looking for that. And all of the cats are going to have that characteristic. There's also the mountain lion skull. Unfortunately, we don't have easy access because that's down in the Natural History Museum. There is a tooth difference between those, so you can count your teeth to tell those two apart. Then obviously you have the size difference as well. Right, and with that, we'll move on to our rodents. So I have 4 different rodent skulls we're going to focus on. Originally in this lab, we would dive into the mice and rat skulls as well, but unfortunately, that's really, really difficult to do. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out of the online lab. So we will talk about how you can tell these skulls apart in the lecture, so make sure you look at that and know kind of what you're looking at to tell them apart. I'm really going to talk about that for the chipmunks and squirrels, but I just don't feel confident doing it by picture and video. I really want you to see that in person. So the 4 rodents that we have right now, these are the 3 that I really love to give out. These 3 look fairly similar, but they have good identifying characteristics. So this is one of my favorite questions to ask, is to give one or all of these skulls and ask which one each of these is. So we'll start with our woodchuck. So for the woodchuck, once again, you're going to have these rodent teeth that you're going to have present in all of these. And the big giveaway for this is these postorbitals that you have up here. Very, very pronounced, and you don't have those on either of the other ones. So if you look for those strongly pronounced postorbitals, that's going to tell you that you have this woodchuck skull. So make sure you're looking for that, along with your generalized shape. The next skull we have that looks fairly similar is our porcupine. And so with porcupine, the first thing you'll notice is that you do not have those postorbitals. It's clear. But you do have these large gaps in front of our zygomatic arch. So these are these infraorbital canals that are really pronounced. So make sure you look for those infraorbital canals. This is the only of these 3 skulls that have those canals present. So really look for those if you're trying to identify which of these skulls you might have. And then finally, we have our beaver skull, which once again looks similar to the others. So these are missing those key identifying characteristics for the other 2. You don't have your postorbitals and you don't have your infraorbital canals. What you do have within this is a really pronounced sagittal crest. So I don't know if you can see that very well on video, but it's rather wide, it's rather strong. So that's really what you're looking for. is this strong zygomatic crest is going to tell you that you have a beaver, along with lacking those other characteristics that you see in the porcupine and the woodchuck. So the final skull that I want you to be able to ID is Ondontras zebethicus, which is our muskrat. So the muskrat skull, what we'll see is a similar shape to the others. Obviously we have a smaller size than the others. We're still seeing those pronounced rodent teeth. We don't have any of the infraorbital canals, or what we do have for postorbitals are just these little nubs. So these nubs are a good key identifying characteristic, and it just has a different generalized shape to it that you should really be able to pick out. So if you're looking for that shape, you should be able to tell that we do have a muskrat here. So go ahead and make sure that you're looking for that along with your rodent teeth, and you should be able to identify this skull from the others. All right, and with that, that is all the skulls that we have. I'll do a quick shoot through again here in a second. But these are the ones that I really want you to learn and know. So make sure you take a look through this video and look for the differences between this and the slides that I provided. Okay, so once more, here are the skulls that we're covering. So first we have Canis lupus, then we have our coyote, our red fox, gray fox, black bear, raccoon, long-tailed weasel, fisher, river otter, bobcat, woodchuck, porcupine, beaver, and then our muskrat. And so on the beaver, I was saying sagittal, and what I meant was the zygomatic arch. So make sure you're looking for that zygomatic arch to be thick, not the sagittal crest. And then here are the top of all of these skulls.